Dr. Singh. This is the last presentation of this symposium. So please bear with me for next 10 to 12 minutes. So I am talking about some basic research conducted by us in with collaboration with the Science of Nuclear Physics in Kolkata. So in spinal cord injury, so always there is a primary injury, and the primary injury, it causes trauma to the central and peripheral nerves, damaged blood vessels and axons, fragmentation of neuronal cells membranes, blood clots and hemorrhages in the nerve cell bodies, and hypoperfusion develop in the gray matter. But after that occurs the secondary injury. Secondary injury causes blockage of the axon conduction, spillage of the glutamate. This is the main culprit in spinal cord injury in the secondary phase. In the extracellular space, there will be free radical production in the axons, followed by a cellular apoptosis. So this is the schematic representation of the spinal cord injury. After an initial insult, the resting microglia, they are converted to activated microglia or macrophages, and the astrocytes, they are also become reactive astrocytes, and that's called cavitation and necrosis of the nerve cells. So basically, these two cells are important in central nervous system. The astrocytes, which provide support and nourishment to neurons, which clear debris from the blood barrier, and the oligodendrocytes, they produce the myelin sheath that wraps around axons and are responsible for salt reconduction. So in a modified environment of adult spinal cord, which these obstacles, the regenerative procedures. The environmental inhibitors at the level of the injured axons, these are the glial scars and the cyst and cavitation formation, and the myelin inhibitors. So as a result of there is atrophy and death of neurons. So molecular dissociation of axon degeneration caused by these axon growth inhibitors. These are astrocyte and glial derived growth inhibitors, the fibroblast meningeal cell derived growth inhibitors, and myelin associated inhibitory factors. In a secondary damage in the cellular level, this is mainly caused by the glutamate excitotoxicity. The glutamate causes high intracellular calcium concentration, which causes nitric acid oxide production, and therefore there will be increase in free radical concentration, which ultimately causes the necrosis and apoptosis. Since the molecular level details of the degeneration is still an ongoing topic of research, our work was focused on generating the repertory of proteins in the spinal cord injured CSF for different levels of injury in the SCS scale. So what is proteomics? Proteomics is the analysis of the protein complement to the genome. So the genomics is the study of the genes, and from the gene there is transcription and there is protein formation. That is the proteomics. One organism will have radically different protein expression in different parts of its body, in different stages of life cycle, and different environmental conditions. While the genome is a rather constant entity, the proteomes differs from cell to cell and is constantly changing through its biochemical interactions with the genome and the environment. And the large-scale study of proteins, while it is often viewed as the next step, proteomics is much more complicated than genomics. So just giving an example, what can happen with the alteration of the proteomics? This is the left side is a normal hemoglobin beta cells. So only the one amino acid that is A is changed with T, and there is the whole thing changed. There will be sickling of the red cells. So in proteomics, we study proteins by protein isolation, followed by protein separation, and followed by protein identification. So this is the protein isolation procedure. So find a sample, pick it, grind sample in buffer, transfer to tube, heat the sample, centrifuge to remove insoluble material, recover the supernatant, keep solution for gel analysis, and that part obtained is the pure protein solution. So protein separation takes advantage of physical properties such as isoelectric point and molecular weight. Is on 1D gel electrophoresis is a quick and easy method to separate protein by size only. 2D gel electrophoresis combines isoelectric focusing and the SDS page to separate the proteins by isoelectric point and also by size. So the peptide mass fingerprint is the next step. When we make the proteolytic peptide fragments, digest the protein into peptides, then measure the peptide masses, weigh the peptides in the mass spectrometer, and then we match the peptide masses to protein or nucleoid sequence database compared with the data we previously fed to a computer. So proteins are digested into peptides. Peptides are analyzed with the mass spectrometer, match observed peptide masses to theoretical masses of all peptides in database, and assemble those peptide matches into protein identification. So in protein research, there are basic research and applied research. Cerebrospinal fluid is the fluid of choice to study pathologies and disorders of the central nervous system. This composition, especially protein and peptides, holds the promise that it may reflect the pathological state of an individual. So our concept came from this paper. In Alzheimer's, it has been found that altered proteome profiles have been reported in both postmortem brain tissues and body fluids of subjects in Alzheimer's disease. And in nowadays, surgically we have improved much, and improvements in the medical, surgical, and rehabilitative care have dramatically extended the lifespan and increased the quality of life of individuals with acute and chronic SCI. But much remains to be improved in restoring functions for individuals with spinal cord injury. So spinal cord injury is one of the leading causes of disability and morbidity worldwide. Spinal cord injury due to trauma has two stages: the primary and the secondary stage, as I have already described. And the acute phase, primary phase, is over by seconds to minutes. The secondary injury gives a valuable time window to explore events before interventions are done for stabilizing the patients. So right after the initial mechanical damage inflicted by a primary injury, a plethora of molecular changes set in, initiating the secondary injury process. Various processes like hypoperfusion of the gray matter, glutamate exotoxicity, plasma membrane failure, ionic perturbation, energy failure, these occurs in a cascade. These processes mentioned above vary in extent depending on the injury severity, and hence it is imperative to study human CSF or spinal cord injured patient during secondary phase. The objective of the present study is to survey the intercellular molecular pathways that are perturbed in the severe SCI during the secondary phase. We further compare the differential abundance at a later time period post-injury, as it is presumed that CSF undergoes a substantial molecular alteration as the secondary phase progresses. The study was conducted since December 2011 on 45 SCI patients as a collaboration with Science of Nuclear Physics, Kolkata, and NRS Medical College. After it was approved by Institutional Ethical Committee of NRS and SI. The study was conducted in two patients group with CSF drawn at two time periods, 1 to 8 days post-injury and 15 to 60 days post-injury. So these are the inclusion and exclusion criteria of our study. This is a list those proteins, abnormal proteins we put isolated from the post-injury patients in CSF. These are the pictorial diagrams. We have found 8 CSF proteins which has differential abundance in complete and incomplete SCI at 1 to 8 days post-injury. The proteins that are more abundant in complete injury CSF at 1 to 8 days post-injury are mainly transferrin and beta-2-glycoprotein. Those less abundant in complete injury, SCI injury in CSF were haptoglobin and zinc alpha-2-glycoprotein. Haptoglobin and zinc alpha-2-glycoprotein showed a reversal in their abundance profiles. We observed that the overall abundance level of haptoglobin and zinc alpha-2-glycoprotein decreased at 15 to 16 days post-injury as compared with the levels at 1 to 8 days post-injury. This trend was observed for both complete injury and incomplete injury by Western blot. An interesting finding from our proteomic study is that the higher abundance of zinc alpha-2-glycoprotein and haptoglobin is incomplete injury CSF at 1 to 8 days post-injury. And there is interesting finding that there is an increased secretion of APOE and increased recruitment of APOA1 by injured peripheral nerves during the regenerative phase. We found APOA1 to be increasingly abundant at a later time point in the secondary phase of traumatic spinal cord injury. So we hope that this APOA1 that may throw some light in the dark life of the SCI victims in future. So we investigated these expression changes of APOA1 in neuroblastoma and its abundance changes in CSF samples from complete and incomplete injury of SCI patients. After a mechanical insert to the CNS, abundance of the APOA1 increases. This is followed by progressive inflammatory events. Subsequently, APOA expression levels remain increased in the assaulted tissue, and this is a rescue mechanism of the system to protect itself. So various observations led us to propose that the injured system increases the levels of APOA1 and as a self-protective mechanism after the injury. We have published these findings in two international papers, one in molecular cellular biochemistry and another is in PLOS ONE. This is our team from NSMCH and SNP who conducted this research. We hope this research will throw some light in the future for the degeneration of the spinal cord injury. Thank you.